Shirley come up and talk?
What's
I'm
that?
gonna have Shirley come up and talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, at that time, also the profile cars were really time consuming. And it would take 2 or 3 hours a day just to complete those. You go in and fill out all the medications that they were on, and then any refills, you would check them off. And the pharmacy was outdated, was still the old typewriter that the old typewriter, not the electric typewriter. And so when I started the drugstore, and then we also had what they called an individual label that you had to put in the typewriter, and each one was typed separately. And you had a stamp machine that gave it the number. You had to type in the number, and then you would have a label licker and run the label to the thing, which had like a glue-like substance on the back, and then put it on the bottle itself. In the beginning, Dad had just boxes, not all child-proof or snap-cap vials. They had actual boxes that were open like that, which wasn't really that much of a safety factor for the people. And then in the 80s, the computer came into play, and the pharmacy really changed from there. That meant all the medication, as soon as we would fill a prescription, all that history was recorded on computer, and it would print out a profile or a medication history of the drug. It would also record in it that for future services, for if somebody wanted to get a profile of their medication for the year for tax purposes. Okay, Shirley, would you like to say anything about?
You told a lot of it. Stole my thunder. I'm Sherry Knoll. I'm Bud's sister. And since Daddy didn't buy the store until 1955, I grew up there, literally grew up there. I was 5 years old, and my mother worked at the store too. So I was too young to go to school then. So guess who had to drag along, to the drugstore? And what did I do all that time? I would sit at the fountain. And Bud was home in the old store. Daddy had all the magazines and comic books and stuff up in the front. And they were these big windows, and it had a little shelf. I'd sit up there, and I had the best library of comic books you could imagine. I didn't have to take it home. I just read up there. So. But, and then, once I started school was only 2 blocks away, so I could walk to the drugstore, and I was okay because there were usually more kids going. So there I was, waiting for Mom to go home after school. So that's what I did a lot of the time. Until I got old enough I could stay home, and my brother and sister didn't stay home. That was a joke. So they didn't kill me first, so. But it was fun. The fountain was something that, that's where I grew up. Betsy knows that, and Jenny and Mary Alice. Everybody did. It was the place to be and be seen. It's after school, the news store, everybody that didn't ride a school bus went to the drugstore and got a vanilla Coke, or Betsy said she got a cherry phosphate. Yeah. But it was usually, your Pepsi or Coke and a nickel bag of potato chips. And I know they had a new lady there working one time. Well, I was just one of 30 or 40 kids standing around tapping their nickels and dimes. And I got a Coke and potato chips. And she said, well, no, that'll be 12 cents. And I went, money? Wait a minute. So I ran back to the office and I got my mom. I said, Mom, come out here and tell that lady I don't have to pay for this stuff. So she had to come out and introduce me and do all this stuff. So Straighten that lady out real quick. Yeah. But again, a lot of you all that were there at the old store and at the new one, you probably saw some of our pets. My daddy was a real dog nut. We had 2 strays that lived with us. Some of y'all remember Blackie and old fella or big fella. Well, they used to come down to the store too, and they'd lay by the fire and they'd do all the same stuff. And then when we got the new store, Daddy had a little Cocker Spaniel named Butchie. And Mom would bring him in. He got his little treat. He got his ice cream cone, and he'd sit there and he'd lick his ice cream cone. And Ronnie Crew, my brother-in-law, they had a little poodle. And he used to bring, when he worked there, he'd bring his little dog Ollie, and he'd get his treat too. So, yeah. Fountain was a part of all of our lives, really. And it was kind of fun. We had, at the old store, we used to have ice balls. Do you all remember what ice balls were? Do you all remember the fountain, or the ice ball machine, the great big one, and Daddy set me up out on the front porch of the old drugstore? We still have that. And the kids use it, so. But that was something fun we did. And again, like I say, at the new store, the place was packed after school every day. There must have been, what, 30, 40 of those kids in there. And I know it was really kind of neat. His daddy, he liked kids. Because one summer, there were 4 kids from my class that worked at the drugstore. Janet Miller and I worked fountain, and we took turns. And when we did that, of course, we were still in high school. So we made a collection. All summer long, we took everybody that came in there, and we were going to buy a Boone County Rebel flag because we were the Boone County Rebels. So by golly, we collected enough money that summer to get a rebel flag that we used at the basketball and football games. So that was kind of fun. And then we had Tommy Meadows work. He was our stock boy. His mother worked there also. And the girl he ended up marrying also worked there. So there were 4 of us that summer that were all in the same class. So Daddy always had a stock boy. It was funny. They used to make deliveries from the drugstore, which is something you certainly don't see today. And he had an old car. It was, well, he had an old Pontiac. And then he had, I thought it was for me because it was a Boone County blue and white station wagon. Of course, we took it to all the different games and stuff. Then he got a big van. Then it had Denham's drugstore on it, you know. But they made deliveries almost every day. So that was something that's a thing in the past too. So, and with Dr. Hess and all of them were there, and Bill Campbell across the street. These were all businessmen that were here in Florence. That was a morning routine. Everybody went over and had your cup of coffee, you know, and everybody talked about everything. So it was fun growing up there, you know. They, like I said, and sometimes if they were working late, especially Lee and I think maybe Jim, I'm not sure, would come to the fountain after you all were off work and get a little dip here and there. Were you in on that, or was it just Lee? Yeah, okay. Okay. But, you know, it was really fun growing up there. And, you know, I see a lot of people here that I know from way back then. So, but, you got any questions? You got anything else?
Well, Dawn, my sister-in-law, my daughter-in-law, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm going to give a little history of the history of pharmacy itself. Kind of how the drugstore and the soda fountain connected and what it became into. Some of the history of some of the drugs, major drugs that were a dramatic change in all our lives. So I'm going to let Dawn kind of take it over and go from there.
I'll let you come up here.
That's okay, I'll just stand up here because I have to move the slide. So
Oh, okay.
I'm not exactly sure how I got roped into this other than that I married his son. So he just asked if I could come and help and do a little bit of research, and of course I'd do anything for my in-laws. They're wonderful people. And I think the big reason that I care about this cause is for the 8 years that Brad and I have been married, whenever I introduce myself to anybody, the most common thing that I hear is from the drugstore, and then somebody has a story to tell me. And so I've realized over the years that drugstores, not just Denham's, but across the country, they were what built communities. And of course, as we grow, we lose that, and we have to really seek it out through organizations like this. So yeah, I just did a little bit of research. So what's going to happen is I'll say a few things, and then Bud needs to chime in because he's the one that went to pharmacy school. I just went to the internet to find out what I found out. So it was interesting, though, to learn that it was not too horribly long ago that pharmaceutical medicine was really just remedies and anecdotes, and like it was, you know, sort of that the hot toddy at night makes you feel better. There was a whole lot of alcohol involved in pharmacy early on, which we actually learned. Brett and I went with a couple of other couples to Buffalo Trace Distillery a month or so ago, and we learned that they were the only distillery in Kentucky that stayed open during Prohibition, because doctors would prescribe the liquor and pharmacies would fill it so people could still get their liquor because it would fix everything, right? Any ailment could be fixed through that. So that was very interesting. And then Bud had mentioned a few things about patents and how that changed medicine. Do you want to say anything about?
Yeah, patent medicines they weren't really patented. Patent means that they would have to list all the ingredients in it. They were more like trade name products that were created by pharmacists and some companies during the time. And some of the ones that really ring a bell, it's like Lydia Pinkham's vegetable liquid was mainly about 40% alcohol. Also, another one was Hadacol, which Hadacol was about the same thing. It didn't do anything, it just made you feel better. And there was one during Prohibition, which was 1920 to 1930. Pharmacy was the only place that you could actually buy alcohol, and the doctors would write prescriptions for alcohol, and then the patent medication they would supply it. They weren't regulated at all because they weren't all prescription items are regulated by the government. One of the things, what really started the fountain days in the 1800s, the late 1800s, they would soda fountain, or not soda fountains, but ice cream parlors were really big at the time. But they were usually standalone items. And then the pharmacies, really the ones that, you know, concocted a lot of these medications. They had morphine, cocaine, caffeine, all addicting. And during the late 1800s and the early 1900s, it became, that was the thing to do. All the doctors and things, they thought that was great because they were, you know, it served a purpose. But over the years, in the early 1900s, the pharmacy and those things became to be addicting and fell out of favor. So that's when there was a pharmacist in Atlanta that developed Coca-Cola. And in the beginning, Coca-Cola had cocaine in it. And they ended up changing the formula for that, mainly because it fell out of disfavor. So that's really, during the 20s, when all the bars closed, the soda fountain became very popular because they could go in there and they could get, you know, they could buy some of the things, they could still get the alcohol,